So I'm Dr. Angela Downey. I have a family practice in Canada. I also have a podcast called The Codependent Doctor, which I've been doing for about a year, just talking about anything codependency related. We talk about a lot of mental health issues. And I just have a book that just came out called Enough as I Am. And thank you. Yeah, so that's just come out in the last month or so. So I'm really excited to be talking to you today.
Perfect. So do me a favor. What is codependency and how can maybe we identify it?
Yeah, so codependency can be a whole lot of things. It's really coping mechanisms that you developed as a child when, maybe your living situation wasn't ideal, maybe your parents weren't very present. So you develop these coping skills. And as an adult, your sense of identity and self-worth and all of your emotional safety kind of becomes reliant on another person filling those needs for you. And you end up finding that your worth comes from like what you can do for other people. Maybe you become a people pleaser. You might fear rejection or abandonment. So you end up doing things to, help other people and you abandon yourself in the process because you don't want to lose that other person. Maybe you become a perfectionist because that's, you feel like if you're being perfect, then other people are gonna, be want to be with you or like you. So there's all these coping mechanisms that you've developed to, try and feel worthy. And you don't feel worthy just because you exist. You feel worthy based on what you're doing for other people.
I love that last part where you feel valued, you feel worthy because of what you can do for other people.
Mm.
I've seen so many people who get their value from others to their own detriment. What can we do then to make sure that there isn't an imbalance and we're trying to be as balanced as possible when it comes to our friendships, romantic relationships, family members, even how we place ourselves in the life day to day?
Yeah, I think a lot of it stems from, really getting to know who you are and being okay with who you are. And if you have that confidence and you end up surrounding yourself with people who are going to like you for who you are, it becomes easier to have that balance. But when you're constantly putting yourself aside to make other people happy or to be what you think that they want you to be, it's really hard to find that balance. Because so I think part of that is just really getting to know who you are, learning to set boundaries and not feeling guilty for setting those boundaries. So it's hard to find that balance, and it really starts with getting to know yourself better and just recognizing when there is an imbalance. Doesn't mean you have to fix it right away, but when you start noticing that imbalance happening around you, you just become more aware of things that might need to change.
I remember years ago, I began to notice that there's an imbalance in my life because this was in my 20s. I want to fix the world. Savior complex, as some people would say it, right? And I wanted so much for the people around me. But then there was a point in my life where I started to realize that what I wanted for them wasn't necessarily what they wanted for themselves. So
Mhm.
I wanted happiness, I wanted peace, I wanted success, I wanted abundancy in life. And then these people just wanted to coast, right? They were
Yeah.
okay being less than. They were arrogant in it. You know what? I'm poor and I'm proud,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But what I learned from that experience was that sometimes you can want the very best for people, but that same people don't want the very best for them. Do you find that people struggle with that?
Yeah, we all have our own values. And, we see this a lot in like parent child relationships when children are starting to get older. Parents, push their kids into certain careers or, feel like you should be, dating somebody and then getting a house and doing all this stuff. So parents have these like expectations for their kids of the way things are supposed to progress. And then the child has no intention of doing any of that and doesn't care. So then they're, the parent thinks they're doing the best thing that they can for their child, but if their child doesn't want that, it's going to be, and if the child decides, okay, I'm going to please my parent and do those things, eventually that child's going to resent the parent for pushing the parent's values on them. And so it's really important for, people to, um like, as a codependent, I think that we sometimes push our values on other people, and we think we know what might be best for somebody else, and we don't. And that person needs to do what's best for them. And if somebody's pushing their values on me, then I need to recognize that I don't need to do whatever other people tell me to do, and that I need to do what's best for me.
How can then someone who's, let's say, for example, who's in a relationship with someone and they're dependent on this person for their happiness, for their peace,
Mhm.
because terrain in a relationship is different than terrain single, right? It's a different identity. Like father terrain is different than single terrain, and husband terrain is different than single
Mhm.
terrain, right? So when we're looking to take on these new identities, these new titles, how can then we safeguard from ourselves not to be dependent on the other person, even though it may be coming from a place of love?
Yeah, it's really easy to become enmeshed in another person. You start dating somebody and all of a sudden you're, doing all the same activities together, and you kind of forget who you are a little bit. You forget any hobbies that you used to have, because you're truly just kind of picking up what everybody else is, or what your partner is wanting to do. I'm sorry. Can you still hear me? Okay. The Yeah, it's hard. So you really need to know who you are, and you need to know what your interests are, and you need to find a way to, um, have a life with the other person where you each do your own activities, and at the end of the day you come together and you share everything that you've learned that day. But it's easy to become enmeshed in somebody else's life, and it's easy to, identify yourself as a parent, or, so all I do is I'm just a parent, I'm just a dad, and my whole life revolves around my child. But you can't forget who terrain is, right? Terrain, although you do have different roles with different people, you still need to be you, and you still need to know what makes you tick, and you can abandon yourself. But it's hard to do, for sure. And it's easy to become enmeshed in somebody else's life and world.
I think that's a difficulty for a lot of people, especially like, let's say, or if a relationship is new or they've wanted it so badly. Like I used to date a girl and she wanted to become a mother so badly, right? Her sister had kids, her brother had kids. She was the one out of the three that didn't have children. And she wanted it so badly that Anja, whomever was going to give her this child, she would take
Yeah,
it.
yeah, absolutely.
Right? So she developed a dependency on the person that was she was with after me, just because she can see the goal, and the goal was so important to her that whatever values that person had, whatever beliefs that person had, she would become enmeshed in it. She would absorb it. And unfortunately, when it didn't work out now, she had a little bit of identity crisis because she lost herself in the pursuit of the goal. How do we then pull someone back and remind them that you were someone before this peer group, you were someone before this relationship, and you will be someone after as well?
Yeah, that takes, it really takes getting to know who you are. And and it's easy, and codependents often abandon themselves in because there is this want to have these relationships with people. They're desperate for love. They're it's just you're needing something from somebody else, when really you need that stuff from yourself. Like, you're the only constant, you're the only person that's going to be there your entire life. So if you grew up trying to get love and affection, and you craved that as a child, you're going to crave that when you're an adult as well. And really, you're the only person that's going to love you your whole life. But if you don't love yourself and you need it from other people, it's easy to lose who you are once you're in that relationship, because that person is validating you, and if you're not able to validate yourself, then you're just not going to go anywhere. So, um, you end up stuck in these relationships where, maybe you're getting what you need, maybe you're not getting what you need, but you just need to be able to strengthen that relationship that you have with yourself and be confident enough to live with somebody without needing emotional validation from them. But it's hard, and then it comes with getting to know yourself a lot better and learning to love who you are and being able to validate yourself without depending on other people to give that to you.
I look at the five love languages, and for me growing up, I didn't hear words of affirmation,
Yeah.
right? I got a lot of gifts, but they were hollow. Shut up, Terrain. Here's a gift. We
Yeah.
love you, Terrain. Even though we don't show it, here's a gift. So, in the pursuit of all my relationships, I wanted words of affirmation. Like many people who develop a love language, it's sometimes rooted in what they didn't get as a child. So they develop it as, okay, I wasn't shown quality time. So I want that from my partner. I didn't hear, I love you, you're doing well. I want that from my partner. But I sometimes wonder if people sometimes go overboard with it where they seek it out to your point, and it's an emotional response to it, and they're dependent on it, and they become so attached to the person that as long as they hear what they always wanted to hear as a child, it doesn't matter the treatment. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter the behaviors. Do you see that as well?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. And love languages are interesting because we crave certain things, and if someone's giving you what you need, so you're getting these words of affirmation from them, but then, then they turn around and they maybe they hit you, or they do something that's, not congruent with those words of affirmation, but you're getting part of what you need, right? And it's something that you really want. It becomes really complicated. And yeah, if you never got those words of affirmation when you were a child and that's something that you really wanted, it's easy to become hyper focused on finding people who will give that to you, even though they might not be the healthiest people for you. But love language is just kind of a way to um it's nice to know what your partner's love language is, because then they can help you feel good in your relationship. But sometimes, I don't know. So for myself, I would also get gifts. So if my parent was mad at me, or if we got into a disagreement, it was buying a gift. It wasn't talking about what happened. There would be no resolution to the problem. I would just get My Little Pony instead. And so now as an adult, I don't like getting gifts. I cannot handle getting gifts. I feel guilty. I To me, it's I feel like it's just a way to, you know, placate me, and I can't handle receiving gifts from people right now. Um so it's trauma. Maybe would my love language had been, maybe getting gifts, if I wouldn't have been raised that certain way, maybe I would have liked getting gifts. I don't know. But I also like quality time, and with my partner, I love that they know that, and that's something that we're able to, they're able to give me, and I feel really good when I'm spending quality time with my partner. And um, so if my partner didn't realize that I had a certain love language, and, in exchange they bought me like copious amounts of gifts, I just don't think it would work well. I would feel really uncomfortable having to receive these gifts. So I think love languages are really, they're interesting, but yeah, when you're desperately looking for something that you didn't have as a child, it's sometimes easy to overlook the really bad stuff just to get those few little crumbs of affection and an affirmation.
How were you able to identify that was something that I don't use the word triggering, but that was something that was like you're a little sensitive to when it came to receiving gifts?
Yeah, so one Christmas, I had a partner give me almost like $1,000 worth of gifts, and I started crying. I couldn't open them. I left the room. It was very uncomfortable for me. $1,000 was just like way too much. It was very overwhelming, and I was like, why am I behaving like this? And it became this. I needed to. really kind of get curious as to why I was behaving certain ways, like why I would get triggered. I knew that my stomach was feeling unwell. I knew my chest was heavy, and um, and it wasn't until I started getting curious as to why I felt those ways, and I started thinking back to like my childhood. Did I get a lot of gifts as a child? And then it was, this light bulb went off where I would really only get gifts if I needed to go to the dentist or if I did something bad or I got into an argument with my parent. Everything was rewarded with gifts. But so that's kind of how I started working on the codependency, was really just instead of like beating myself up for crying after getting a gift and not knowing why, just becoming really curious about it and kind of starting to explore some of the, potential traumas that I would have had as a child. So it was just constant curiosity, and there's a lot of tears involved in that, and kind of mourning, the things that I didn't get as a child, or yeah, just being really brutally honest with myself.
Now, this is a question that I've asked myself. I'm going to ask you of it before I give my answer. How are you now at giving gifts?
I have always been good at giving gifts. I am not good at receiving gifts. And it's been like that always. Um, I also like I would rather give somebody else money than somebody give me money. I feel very indebted. I feel guilty. I am okay doing things for other people. I am not good at receiving. I like doing favors for people. I'm not good at asking for help. And it's been this real challenge for the last year to recognize that, you know what, it's okay to ask for help. I don't need to be a superhero. I don't have to do everything by myself. It is okay to receive love. It's okay to receive gifts, but it's still uncomfortable. I get this sensation in my stomach. I get anxious. And I often, it's a day to day challenge. I need to talk myself through this stuff still.
And thank you for answering that because I'm going to share why I asked. So, my partner and I, we had a little bit of a struggle when it came to that because the way that she wanted to be loved was triggering or sensitive to me was the
Yeah.
gifts.
Hmm.
The way that I wanted to be loved was triggering or sensitive to her. So there was a mismatch that we had to understand, and we understood it early. But similar to your point, she was able to do everything for everyone, but asking and receiving is where she struggled. I make this joke. Do you know who She-Hulk is? The Marvel character? Super
A little
strong.
bit.
Yeah, a little bit. So she has this bag and it's called Hulk on it, right? And I laugh because I tell her like this bag represents every time you had to do something on your own. It's this big bag. It has wheels, it has a handle. Anytime you got to do groceries, you know what? I don't need a man to do groceries. You put it in that bag. Garbage, right? I'm like, that bag is like the symbol of it because you're able to do so much without asking of people with that bag. And I share that story because when her and I started to work together through this, we had to understand not only each other and how we grew up, but to understand that sometimes when things don't initially fit together, doesn't mean that it can't fit later on. So when you gave that example where that it was difficult for you to receive, she had to be vulnerable and let her guard down and say that, okay, I trust terrain. I'm safe with terrain, right? I feel protected by terrain. I can let my guard down. Is that something that maybe you went through, or is that something that maybe you see that people struggle with where they've been hurt so much that they develop this wall
Yeah.
against a codependency, against being vulnerable, against receiving help? Now, every time they look out, they look over the wall, they always see an attacker, even though the person is someone that they love, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. So like hyper independence is a coping mechanism. So if you were like shot down all the time when you were young, if you were vulnerable with people and you got hurt in return, you are going to put up that wall. And sometimes it's friendships and they hurt you years later. So this story that you start telling yourself is that eventually this person is going to hurt me. And it's not like you meet up with someone one day and you can put your guard up, but when you're trying to be in a relationship, you need to be vulnerable, and that becomes really difficult when in the past you've been hurt so many times before, and that story starts running in your head, and it's hard to get it out. And you need to start telling yourself not everybody has hurt me, and but it's hard to believe, and because nobody wants to get hurt. And yeah, it's a challenge to let your guard down. It's to let people in. And, relationships are a lot of hard work. People who love you are going to end up, hurting you. And, but it's not because they're trying to hurt you, but because relationships are hard, and you're two different people trying to navigate the world together. So, people get hurt in relationships, and people who love you inadvertently, sometimes hurt you, and then you talk about it and you work through it. But when you've got your guard up and you're not ready to be vulnerable, it's easy to just pack up and leave when you're getting hurt all the time, or just to never let people in at all.
Do you then think that hyper independency can be a coping mechanism for the codependency?
Yeah. 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 Not,
Okay.
if all you need to do is if I just need to rely on myself, I'm not going to get hurt, right? I don't let people hurt me because um yeah, yeah, if you don't let anybody in, no one's going to hurt you, but you're going to be alone for the rest of your life. But yeah, being super independent, having that wall up is a way that you learn to cope when you were younger.
I asked that question because I'm looking back at, and I share that I work with women who are at risk. And I look at all the women that I've worked with over the almost 4 years now. Every time a relationship has ended that they deemed was bad or very bad, right? Like we have relationships that end and it's like, okay, you know what? We've just grown apart. You're still okay, but we're not good together, right? But when I look at when they've explained the relationships that are really bad, during their journey to rediscover themselves, hyper independent,
Yeah.
right? To the point where some of them even become bashful, right? They attack the opposite sex because they don't want to feel it. So they want to feel strong, right? Like when someone's attacking you, one of the fastest ways to feel strong is to attack back, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's a faceless, bodiless, shapeless person, right?
Right?
Right? It's the thought, it's the ghost of it. So I wonder then, in your experiences, because I have an answer and I think it affects maybe one more than the other. Do you think what do you think are the impacts to maybe the women who experience this and the men who experience this, if there's a difference?
Hmm. The only difference, I I think, you know, yeah, I think the only difference I can really think of is that society is okay with men being hyper independent. And they view women being hyper independent a little bit differently than they do men, but they're both trying to protect themselves. If you don't let anybody in, nobody can hurt you. If you don't need anybody to do work around your house, then you don't have to, you don't have to ask for help ever. You can just do things yourself. So um, I think that they're both doing it for the same reasons. I think society just sees them differently. Men are seen as being good for being independent and being able to do things themselves, whereas women, I don't know, they're seen differently. Maybe more aggressive, more of a masculine energy to them. So that's the only thing I can think of right now at the top of my head.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of as well, like the energy. So like men are more celebrated, for lack of a better word, when they're
Yeah.
very independent, right? From society. Whereas I think where the gap maybe favors, in quotations, the women is that in their peer group, there's more of an understanding, right? Because they've been hurt, they've been
Mhm.
impacted in some way. Where a man, if you were to say that, I'm going to swear off all women because I've been hurt, I think his male groups would be like, really? Like, Come on, fix yourself. Let's
Yeah.
let's get going, right? Where women will be more nurturing. I think that's probably a difference I can think of where the world would view the man one way, his peer group will view him differently. The world would view the woman one way, but her peer group will view her differently. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. To be honest with you, I lost myself in that question a little bit. um, I feel women tend to be more supportive. Whereas men, it's almost okay for them to be a little bit more shut down, and I guess there's not as much expectation that they're going to be vulnerable, especially when they're hanging out with their buddies. I don't, I, and I mean, I'm not a man. I don't know what happens when guys get together, but I feel like there's a little bit more surface level talk, whereas women, they, start talking a little bit more about their emotions, and maybe women recognize that that woman, maybe she's doing it to protect herself, and they're a little bit, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question. Terrain, I'm sorry.
No, no, I was just thinking about it to myself when you gave that answer because I really liked your answer and I agree that the world views it differently. It's just I thought about it, I was like, okay, let me see some of the men and women who have gone through this, and I see the women they get the support as you mentioned, right? And then the men is kind of like the lone wolf.
Yeah,
He'll figure it out. And sometimes, like my dream would be what we're doing today is for men and women to have these conversations saying that this isn't a gender thing. It isn't a race thing. It isn't a religious thing. If you're in pain, let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation. Like we can if men and women were to speak more to each other, I think we'd realize that we have the same struggles.
sure. Sure. And I have a female partner and we have the same struggles, right? Like we all come with we're all different people. We all come with our own baggage that we are dealing with day to day. And when you have two people whose lives kind of collide and you're interested in each other, you still need to unpack these things together. And there's going to be, you may have, things that you're bringing to the relationship that's different than what your partner's bringing to the relationship. And it becomes relationship will succeed if you're able to work through these things together and being able to communicate how you feel. If one person is completely shut down, the relationship's going to be one-sided, and it's not really going to go anywhere. But so then you end up staying together with your partner just because you are living together in the same place, but not because you're having a really, great relationship.
How can someone then, if you're the partner that wants to assist your partner, right, regardless if it's a heterosexual, homosexual relationship, what can that person do to be supportive of their partner to help them navigate that journey?
Yeah, so when I brought up codependency to my partner, they didn't know what it was. And to be honest with you, I didn't know what codependency was like a couple of years ago either. I thought it was something that, only women of alcoholic husbands had. But um, so it's, she didn't know what codependency was, and it scared her a little bit. But she listened to a lot of podcasts on codependency, and it meant so much to me that somebody was willing to invest their time and energy into something that was important to me. And I was on a recovery journey, and she wanted to know, how do I support this person? And she became this sounding board for me. And so sometimes something happens, and I go, okay, I'm getting this feeling in my stomach. Like I feel anxious. I don't know what's happening here. And then there's no offense taken by anybody. It's like, okay, well, why do you think you're feeling like what just happened that we need to kind of work on? And then we both become curious as to like why I'm feeling uneasy. So I had to recognize that I had some physical cues that would tell me when something was wrong. And my partner was able to kind of jump in and work on like why I was feeling that way and where that comes from. So it's been a learning journey, and um, it's something that we need to work at all the time, every day. And but she's very supportive, and I think in this whole process, she's recognized that she has some baggage too. And for the first time ever, she is dealing with things that have been bothering her. So we're just kind of each other's sounding boards, and we talk through things. And so it's being able to, and sometimes you can recognize something in the other person that, hey, have you ever noticed that you do this? And then that person's like, oh, I hadn't really thought about that. So just being there in a non-judgmental way for the other person, and just being able to talk through some of these things has just been like so wonderful.
How important is that part, the communication and being able to talk through what one person in the relationship is struggling with or what the relationship is struggling with?
Yeah, so you need to feel safe to be able to bring things up. And sometimes you're going to say something that hurts the other person, and you need to be okay with hearing things that are, going wrong, or something that you might be going wrong. You need to feel okay with that because the other person needs to feel safe to be able to bring it up. And communication is such a big part of that. And having that safe place where you can talk about what's going on is going to help, and once you get past whatever it is that was bothering you, your relationship's just that much stronger. And you learn how to, you kind of have to teach people how you want to be treated, and the other person needs to teach you how they want to be treated. And you need to have a partner who's willing to talk to you about these things and figure it out together.
There's always this joke that I make that as we were born, year one, year two, year three, year four, all the way to year five, we learn how to talk. We can sound words, vowels, consonants, everything, right? But when it comes to communication, that's the test because some people think talking and communication is the same thing. I was like, no, talking
No.
is you can sound words, right?
Mhm.
Tell me how you feel. Tell me how you experience. Tell me how to treat you the way that you want to be treated. What do you think then are some of the obstacles that maybe couples face when it comes to having healthy communication in their relationships?
Yeah, sometimes, sometimes we're not good listeners. And when someone is, telling us something, we might jump and immediately start defending ourselves. Or we're already, the person's not done talking, and we're already thinking about, how am I going to respond to this? How am I going to defend myself? So really needing to listen to what the other person is saying is probably one, a big key. And being able to say how you truly feel, and knowing that potentially it might hurt your partner, and that it just takes a lot of courage, and to do those things. And your partner needs to be able to tell you what's going on in their world as well, and they need to feel a sense of safety around that.
That was something that I had to learn that not everyone knew. It's like apologizing, right? Like when you have a form of communication and you go to someone and you say that, you know what, Angela, this behavior that you did a week ago, it bothered me, but I want to make sure that the timing and the place was right to have the conversation.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing when it comes to people addressing something because I recently was reading something. It talks about the turf, the tone, and the timing, meaning that the location, the tone, and the timing of it. You know, there's this joke online where you go out for a girls' night or a boys' night, and your partner's waiting up, looking at the door, sitting in the sofa when you go home because they're so upset that you went out somewhere they didn't know. The timing is not the best. The tone definitely is not
Yeah.
going to be good, right? So I share that because sometimes we forget that the way we want to say something is the way that we would want to hear it. But sometimes the way we would want to say something may not resonate in the way that we think it's going to resonate with our partner. For you, when you identified some of the things that you're going through, what did you do for yourself now to be able to express this to your partner, knowing that they would understand it and get it?
So it took a long time before we got to the point where they would understand it and get it. It became a lot of, you know, I I feel uncomfortable with this. I don't know why. Can you give me just give me a couple of hours to kind of be by myself. And I love you. I'm going to come back. I want to talk about this. But you're right. Sometimes the turf is not, it's, you're not in the right place. You're not in the right mindset. Maybe you've had a couple of alcoholic beverages and, it's not the right time to communicate. But like when I grew up with a parent who gave the silent treatment and something would happen and then disappear. And um, so I think communication comes in with like I need to say, I want to talk to you about this, but I can't do it right now. Can we come back to this in half an hour tomorrow? Um so I think just kind of putting it out there that this is something that you want to talk about. This isn't a great time for me. I need to think about things and but let's get back to it. Um, rather than forcing a conversation when the timing's not right. You've had a little bit to drink and this like the timing's just not good to have a good honest conversation where we can be open. So I think everybody needs to be in the right frame of mind to have good healthy communication. It's not always going to be when the thing is happening. Sometimes it needs to be at a different time, but it's important to communicate that you will come back to it. And don't just buy me flowers. We need to talk about this. So and don't disappear on me. Don't say that you're gonna, don't say anything at all and just take off and, don't talk to me for 2 weeks because that's, you definitely need to talk about these things. You can't just disappear and then expect that it's going to be okay in 2 weeks without addressing it.
Yes, everyone, don't trying to make up with it by using a love language that triggers the person, such as gift
Yeah.
giving,
Yeah.
right? And I'm surprised how many people give the silent treatment,
Mhm. Yeah.
right?
It's uh, yes. I think that people who give the silent treatment, that is their way of coping because they don't have the language or the ability to communicate their feelings. They've never, been in touch with their feelings. So for them, it's a shutdown. They need to just go and process things on their own for a little bit. And sometimes they use it as a form of punishment as well, right? I'm not going to let you talk to me until I decide that you've earned it again, right? So as the person who's on the receiving end of the silent treatment, you're like, what have I done wrong? I'm trying over and over and over again to get this person's, attention and have them not be mad at me anymore. Maybe if I send just one more text message. So, and the other person might be using it as a form of control. They might be using the silent treatment because they don't know the language to be able to um, you know, talk about their feelings. They just want to go off for like 2 weeks, and then when they've decided that they're ready, they come back. But it's hard being on the receiving end of the silent treatment. It's brutal.
Yes, yes. It's in many cases, it always comes across to your point as a punishment to the other person, especially when they give you the silent treatment and then they're so talkative to everyone else,
Yep. Yeah. And
right?
it's almost like they're doing it on purpose to make sure you see them talking to other people. You're the one who's on the outs. You're not worthy to be part of this group right now. And yeah, it's very isolating. It hurts. It hurts being on the outs. And yeah, and when you're a child and you're dependent on this person to feed you and clothe you and give you a safe home, and all of a sudden this person is not talking to you anymore, and you try so hard to make this person not be mad at you anymore. So as an adult, sometimes avoid conflict. You don't want to make anybody else mad at you because otherwise you're going to get punished. You're going to be on the outs. And it can be really traumatic for kids who grow up in environments where, their caregivers, aren't able to deal with their emotions in a healthy way.
Or take it like even a step further with like adults, you're in a relationship and this person, let's say, is a primary breadwinner, right?
Yeah.
They earn the majority of the money, they have the majority of the resources, assets, and so on. And then they do something that upsets you and you try to communicate it, they shut down not only emotionally, financially, physically. mentally. Now you're isolated out, and imagine being isolated within your own home, in
Yeah.
your own marriage, in your own relationship, and then that person is talkative to so many other people. And I can just visualize if I would have put myself in this situation, and maybe I'll get your input as well. You're in a relationship with someone, that person isolates you because of you expressing how you feel and the type of communication that you want with them, they're having with someone else.
Yeah. And, if you get punished for saying something, you're never going to want to say anything again, right? You're never going to want to argue with this person. You become, a people pleaser, and you say yes to things when you want to be saying no. When you need time for yourself, you give, give, give to the other person, even though you can't be giving anymore. Because there's this fear, and especially if somebody is the main breadwinner, they pay for the house. Maybe you're staying at home with the kids. It's really scary. Your entire livelihood, your existence, and where you get all your food and the roof over your head, you're dependent on this person. You never want to make them mad again. Especially if they're, punishing you. They could kick you out of the house. So it's really scary, and you end up doing things to please the other person, and it's not a good place to be, and it can be very scary for women who are dependent on somebody else for food and love, and you end up doing things, and you tolerate behaviors that you normally wouldn't tolerate, or that you shouldn't be tolerating, but you do it because you're scared.
One of my friends, she reached that point, and when she caught herself, Angela, was when she was paying for the repairs on the person's car, giving this person money. And this was years ago. This was probably 4 years ago, I want to say. To this day, if a man even makes a joke about asking her for money, triggered.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard, and like, even women who make the bulk of the money, it doesn't have to be a money thing or a roof over your head. But if you didn't get a lot of love when you were a child, and now this person is giving you what you need, and they're validating your feelings, you're going to end up trying to please them, and doing things because you don't want to let go of that love. And yeah, like your friend who, all of a sudden she got out of that situation. She became more independent, but yeah, then you get triggered by these things, and you don't want to ever get stuck in that situation again. So instead of talking about it, you bolt, right? You're out. And yeah, these things, they stay with you for a really long time. And it takes a
And
lot of
people,
work.
yeah, and people don't even realize that something that in that case with my friend, she was paying literally to get something that she always wanted, either that she didn't get it from her childhood, maybe from her previous marriage, whatever the case is. And once she realized that she's being used for that, it was unfortunate because it's happened to her time and time again. And I tried to explain to her, I was like, because you haven't resolved your issue with it, you're attracting people that are going to do it. So I'm going to ask you as we close, I'm going to give you three wishes. Aladdin's genie lamp.
Hmm.
You can wish for three things in regards to this question. What is it that you wish? What are three things you wish people knew about codependency behavior and why?
Oh, um, so codependency comes from like things that have happened in your childhood. So just being able to look at yourself, and be kind to yourself when you're examining these things that happened to you when you were a child. So be kind to yourself, and if you do end up setting boundaries, there's a lot of guilt involved with that. So don't be guilty for setting boundaries or for prioritizing yourself. So a wish that I have for everyone is just recognizing that it's okay to be to ask for things and ask for what you need without feeling guilty. um and if you're trying to recover from codependency, just starting small, and just looking around your everyday environment, and kind of recognize when, okay, that that's weird. Like I am exhausted right now, but I said yes to go to this thing. Why did I do that? So just recognizing those times when something that you did isn't congruent with what you really want, and being curious about where that comes from. So just I wish people a good sense of curiosity and self-compassion, and knowing that it's okay um, to be self-aware and to ask for the things that you need.